Hello and welcome back to Dino, only on riotradio.ca and all our other affiliations, live from the Media Hub. My name's Eldin Atkin. It's been a while. I'm happy to be back. Today we are talking about more Canadian dinosaurs. As you can see, I have a plethora here with me. So today, I'm just going to restart. If you haven't seen this episode or this show before. So my name's Eldin Atkin. This is Dino. So I started this journey of talking about all Canadian dinosaurs from A to Z like 2 years ago almost, and I'm slowly making progress. It's a bit of a slog, but we're back. So today we're on to the S dinosaurs. So last episode we talked about Saurolophus. Today we're talking about Stegoceras. So Stegoceras, not to be confused with Stegoceras, and I even made a little clip just in case you didn't know. So we can play that now, just to show. So like Stegosaurus and Stegoceras, a little bit different. But yeah, so that's the start of today. So Stegoceras is a really cool little dinosaur. It comes from the Pachycephalosaurus family. So that's this family here. So little dinosaurs like a dome. They're called the dome-headed dinosaurs. So they lived in what is now North America during the late Cretaceous period. So that's about 77.5 to 74 million years ago. And the first ever specimen was found by Lawrence Lamb from the Belly River Group, which is in Red Deer River District of Alberta, Canada, because they're all Canadian dinosaurs, in 1898, which is a really early find. These fossils were only 2 partial domes, which is really cool to see. So I have a picture of the domes too. This is from Wikipedia. That's just all we had. Like, that's the wild thing. Like, you got to think. Oops, I'll just throw out the mic. My bad. Dinosaur down. That's just the dome. Like, that's all we found was the top of the skull. And it's crazy to think that from the top of the skull, after a couple more discoveries, we finally figured out, wow, this really is a dinosaur. So on the side note too, the really cool thing is these fossils are actually housed at the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa, and I've been there. So kind of cool that I've actually been to the location. I didn't see these, unfortunately. Now, another partial dome was collected in 1901. This was dubbed the type species. So I'm going to throw some sciencey words at you here, unfortunately. So type species means the particular species of which the description of a genus is based and with which the genus name remains associated during taxonomic revision, which basically means we found the skull, and they're like, okay, this is the types. All of them have this for sure. And then while the revisions happened, it kept the same. So after years of after I didn't pre-prove that one. Well, that's after 8 years consideration. Oh, that works. And study, Lamb decided to name the new dinosaur as a one dino family, or it's called monotypic. Now again, sorry, sciencey words. Monotypic is a species that has no subspecies or smaller taxa and is made up of a single population that has no recognized races or subspecies. So it's by itself. It's kind of lonely that way. Whew, I gotta catch my breath. And then it was named Stegoceras validus in 1902. So discovered in 1898, named, kind of found more pieces in 01 than named by 02, which is a pretty good turnover rate. Now, in 1907, we meet this other guy named John Bell Hatcher, who chose that the first partial dome was the lectotype specimen. Lectotypes are kind of weird. So you have like the type species, which is what everything's, okay, we found the skull first, now this is the type, everything's going to kind of revolve around this. A lectotype is picked when someone didn't pick it. So it means that Lamb didn't choose a holotype. So John said, okay, well, this is probably the best we got. And he said, okay, cool. So then John beat him to it. John said, this is lectotype, and it stuck. The name Stegoceras, though, means horn roof or horned roof, and validum or validus means strong in Latin. So really cool. At the time of discovery, paleontologists didn't have the knowledge, though, of dinosaurs that they have today. Imagine some puzzle pieces. You have some puzzle pieces. You can kind of tell that it looks like a cat, but you don't have the box, and you don't have the rest of the puzzle pieces. That's exactly what paleontologists at the time had to deal with. You can kind of see what it might be, but you're not entirely sure. So that's kind of like, hopefully that kind of gives you a little looking glass here. So they had to go through like guessing here, comparing to living animals there, and ultimately hoping their theories were sound because they were in charge, right? Like that's the whole thing. So egos got involved though, as they always do, and everyone wanted to be the first one to discover a dinosaur or describe a new dinosaur. So that led to some pretty comedic ideas of what these partial domes could be. At first, the idea of them being prenasal. So prenasal, just so I'm going to show the head here. Prenasal means that it would be here. So it's before the nose, and it'd be like on the brow. So of course the skull looks kind of different, but they thought it was a prenasal bone. And people agree that, yeah, okay, it's a prenasal bone, which meant paleontologists thought the domes were the base of a large horn that would be in between the nasal bone and the brow ridge. So the midline, and it kind of just stuck. So a Hungarian paleontologist, Franz Nopska von Sylvalis, put forward the idea that Stegoceras having a single unpaired horn, right here, and they kind of just stuck and said, okay, cool, it's like a unicorn dinosaur. That's really cool, let's go with that. But thankfully, it didn't stick. So Stegoceras at the time was lumped between the families of ceratopsians and stegosaurs. So Stegosaurus and like Triceratops. And the idea of a horn made sense. Thankfully, John Bell Hatcher came back and he said, I don't think it belongs to either one of these families, actually. And at one point, he didn't even think they were dinosaurs at all. He thought these were like weird, like skull caps or maybe something else. But years later, in 1924, American paleontologist Charles W. Gilmore found a complete skull of Stegoceras. And again, in 1943, Barnum Brown and Eric Marin Schuljacker supported the idea of the dome-headed dinosaur after reviewing Gilmore's classifications, and with the addition of 46 other skulls. So, took some time, but we were like, okay, it definitely doesn't have a unicorn horn. It's a real dinosaur. So there have been multiple discoveries that led to new species being placed in this genus. So the genus is Stegoceras, in the family Pachycephalosaurus. But after some scrutiny, these discoveries were deemed junior synonyms, which means they're like younger versions or juveniles or adolescents of Stegoceras. One species, though, did make it through all the scrutiny. It beat the allegations, as the kids would say, and it was deemed its own dinosaur. Well, so it's Stegoceras novomexicanum, which was named in 2011 from fossils found in New Mexico. Cool, New Mexico dinosaur. This has been highly debated, and some still think it doesn't belong to the genus Stegoceras. So we have a picture of Stegoceras here, and it looks kind of funny. Like it's got proto feathers. It's a funny looking little guy. Now, you can kind of see the dome head. The dome is most of the skull. This one's pictured with proto feathers. We're not entirely sure if they even had proto feathers. It looks like a little fun guy. Now, it's known as one of the most complete North American pachycephalosaurs. It was a small dinosaur, being only about 2 to 2.5 meters, or 6.6 to 8.2 feet long. So I have the size picture as well. And like, this is not a very big dinosaur. Like, I could take this thing on. Justin could take this thing on. Justin is bigger than this one too. So there we go. It's thought to have weighed anywhere between 10 to 40 kilos, which is about 22 to 88 pounds, which comparatively, that's like a Bernese mountain dog or a Labrador retriever. They get to be about 80 pounds. So it's a small dinosaur, weighs as much as a dog. It stood under a meter tall, or approximately 2 to 3 feet, about your average toddler size. So again, if you can fight a toddler, you could fight Stegoceras. At this size, it would classify, and this is the funny thing, as a medium to small pachycephalosaur. So this little guy is like a medium version of, I guess, pachycephalosaurs. Stegosaurus novomexicanum, on the other hand, seems to be smaller of the two, but the argument are that these specimens could be juveniles or could be adults. We're not entirely sure. Since we don't really have a ton of information on novomexicanum, it's tough to gauge if it is an adult or not. So in the skull, it was composed of a short snout, a thick, broad, and relatively smooth dome on the top of its head, and the leading theory suggests that Stegoceroses, when they're babies, would have had a smaller dome or even a flat skull that would ultimately grow into said dome. The bone that made up the dome of Stegoceras would be around 75 millimeters at its max, which is wild. And that's in thickness. So that's like 7.5 centimeters thick skull. At the back of the skull, you could find a thick shelf, which you can kind of see on this. I know it's kind of hard to see, but around at the back of the skull, you'd have like a little, like almost like a shelf where it would kind of just end. And at the front, you'd see thick ridges over the eyes, and you can kind of see the brows here. Again, it's not the best. And the areas of the skull not dominated by the dome would have tubercles, or round outgrowths with nodes or knobs. So as you can kind of see, it's a little bony all around. It's like the back of its skull. We think these could vary and probably would have like changed. Like they wouldn't have all been the same, and they would have grown with the dinosaur as well. So before I get into the rest of Stegoceras, let's talk about the dome, because the dome's really cool. What was it used for? Were they like mountain goats? Because we see lots of images of that. Should bald men fight like this? And I think that'd be kind of cool. Well, I can answer at least one of these questions. And there are many images in books, online, and shown in pop culture that a Pachycephalosaurus is headbutting each other like rams or goats. We have a picture of that too, which is kind of cool. The classic Pachycephalosaurus. And again, like that is, as long as I've been a kid, that has been the thing. Like that's what they've done. They fought that way. But we know this couldn't have been the case. The bones in the head weren't made to withstand the crashing or crushing forces of headbutting each other, of the two domes colliding. But that doesn't mean Stegoceras wouldn't have used the domes for some kind of combat. So we have a picture of Stegoceras, and it's more like body shots. So when you have a dome like that, you can't headbutt each other. Goats have like such a thick, goats and rams and all that stuff have like a thick piece of like skull right there. They aren't made for that. And here, it's thought that maybe during the mating season, they would headbutt each other kind of for dominance, sort of like how like elephants kind of like fight. But again, two crushing forces would not go well. That's how you get your brains scrambled. So that's kind of like, that's the really cool thing, and that's more of a new-aged concept, which is nice. I like that. So the eye socket of Stegoceras faced forward, which is really cool, giving it some stereoscopic vision, or, for the layman here, which is me, depth perception. So it could definitely tell at least some sort of depth perception there. The teeth were small and serrated, perfect for plant shredding. So we think it, not for sure, but like 90%, it was a herbivore. Could have been omnivorous. A specimen was found with gastralia, which are belly ribs, which dinosaurs didn't really have in like the ornithischians, which are the family this comes from, like the bird-hipped. They weren't really known for belly ribs, but later it was found to be ossified tendons. So when ossification happens, when your muscles and stuff turn to bone or turn to stone after fossilization, so it wasn't anything cool. Now, with that being said, there's not much else to talk about with Stegoceras. There's a lot of history with the classification. There's a lot of updates on fossils and all the arguments around what happened in that time. But I recommend you check it out yourself. So I could sit here all day and kind of tell you about this, but if you really want to read, the Wikipedia page is fantastic for Stegoceras, and the prehistoric wildlife page is also amazing for Stegoceras. But that's really all I have for Stegoceras today. Now the next episode, whenever that will be Struthiomimus, which is a dinosaur that I hate with a burning passion. If you ever play Path of Titans, Struthiomimus is just annoying. They run around and make stupid bird noises. I can't stand these dinosaurs. But thank you very much for being here with me. So I'm happy you joined me for the Dino Discovery today. My name's Eldin Atkin, and you've been watching Dino live from Media Hub on riotradio.ca.